Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? So my copy of Advanced Fighting Fantasy came in the mail. There it is. Look at that thing, huh? I also got their other book, Out of the Pit. Um, so today I just wanted to make a shorter video than the last one I made, and make it on the opposed roll mechanic, because the game uses two 2d6 mechanics. I didn't stutter there. It uses two of them. Um, the unopposed roll is a roll low, roll your ability or your skill or under, where the opposed roll is both players, not surprisingly, roll 2d6, but they also add modifiers to those rolls. And so what you add, and generally an opposed roll is going to be combat. The only other example I could see that they gave in the book was stealth versus awareness, which makes sense. And if you're a D20 guy, you think of like perception and stealth. Anyhow, but the classic one in these books is combat, and it's a little odd how the probabilities works. You have to be very careful who you fight. So you both roll 2d6, but you both also add your skill score. So in general, like a starting out hero is going to have a skill somewhere between 4 and 7. A lot of monsters in that Out of the Pit book, they have skills of around 5 to about 9-ish, but most of them are around like 7, 8, 9 in that range. However, your hero may have a special skill and a weapon, and if you're a guy that wants to play something that's kind of like a fighter, there's no classes, but there's like basic archetypes you can kind of make based on what skills you choose, and whether you put all your points in magic or all your points in general skill, that sort of thing. Oh look, an alarm going off. I'm not going to wake up. Anyhow, the thing you do is you've got a guy that might have a guy that has like say a +1 in his sword skill, or maybe he has 2 in his sword skill if he's a warrior. So maybe he has it's combat time and he's lucky enough to have a sword and not a mace. Then he's adding 9 to this roll. So you make your 2d6 roll, you add your general skill to that roll, and then if you have any other relevant things like a skill and a weapon, you add that as well. And there's a bunch of situational modifiers, things you think of, like whether it's dark or whether you're like fighting on uneven terrain and you're on the high ground or the low ground, etc. All that kind of stuff. Here's what you really have to be careful of. At the end of the day, you add up all your modifiers, you add up all the opponent's modifiers, you subtract up the guy that has less modifiers from the guy that has the most, and you come up with kind of like your attack strength. So say you're a guy with a skill of 7, and you've got 2 points in the sword skill, so you're adding 9 to your 2d6 roll. And this other guy, maybe he's some kind of like roguish. He decided to spend his points in a different area or something. So he's got like say he's got a skill of 7, but he didn't put any points in a weapon. He's doing other stuff. So now your advantage over him, your attack strength over him is 2. At that point, you have a much greater chance of winning every combat round than he does. Combat is a little bit different in terms of like once you win a round, then you roll damage, but the defender rolls armor and sees how effective their armor is. So the chance they might take no damage at all, but a lot of times they're going to take some damage. But here's how this opposed combat roll works probability-wise. That's a lot different than some other opposed rolls you might be used to that are linear. In general, if there's no modifiers, it's not a 50-50 chance. It's a 47.5. That you're gonna. I'm sorry, that's a D20. It's 44.37% chance of you winning a combat round. Your opponent has the same chance, because chance of a tie is about 11%. And the way the rules are, it says that that's a draw. It's really not clear whether you both at that point score damage and hit each other or not, or you just say nobody actually hits anybody. I suppose you could play it either way. And if you're the guy with a disadvantage, you have to choose, okay, do I want to get a blow in on this guy too, or do I just want him to stop hitting me? And maybe it's time to run away. What happens though is if you have a +1 to your advantage, then you've got a 55.63% chance of winning that combat round. But if you have a -1, you've got a 33.56 chance. It's a little bit different than you would normally think of in a linear roll. Plus a -2 gets even a bigger gap. 66.5 roughly percent chance of winning a combat if you're 2 points ahead. So in our example, that's your chance of winning that combat round. But the guy with a -2 disadvantage has about a 24% chance of winning that combat round. So it's a lot different. And finally, like something like plus or negative 3 is pretty heavy duty. If you got plus 3, you've got about a 76% chance roughly of winning a combat round, but a guy with a negative 3 has about a 16% chance. Not good at all. If you're facing somebody that's 3 ranks ahead of you when you add up all the modifiers, you should probably run. Fortunately, there are some rules where you can increase your modifiers by outnumbering somebody. So when you're fighting really tough monsters, you should outnumber your opponents. The other thing that can happen, and people have talked about on websites, I've looked a little bit because I was, just wondering about like if anybody else thought, some stuff about that particular mathematical conundrum. They talked about the fact that heroes can actually put a lot of points over time into like say a weapon skill, and then all of a sudden they're kind of superhero-ish when it comes to combats. So that's it's not a bad thing. That's just kind of the vibe of that game is you have to be very careful who you fight, and of course combat's not always the smartest option. But it's just something to be aware of when you're going out there and used to linear rolls. I still like the game. But looking at the probability of the opposed rolls, you have to be very, very careful who you're messing with. And if you can find any kind of tactical advantage, you should use it.